You may have been trading for over a year now, maybe 2, maybe 3. You've bought the courses, you've studied price action, you know about confluence, you understand support and resistance, you've back-tested your strategy, you know your risk-reward ratios, you've done the work that most people never do, and you're still losing. Not because you don't understand the market, not because your strategy is broken, not because you haven't studied enough. You're losing because of something nobody told you when you started, something that no course covers, something that no indicator can fix. And until you face it directly, nothing is going to change. Not your results, not your consistency, not your account balance. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most traders never accept. Strategy is not your problem. You already have a strategy that works. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not every time, but it works. The problem is that you can't execute it properly. You know what to do and you don't do it. You see the setup and you hesitate. You take the trade and you exit too early. You lose 3 times in a row and suddenly your strategy is broken and you're looking for a new one. That's not a strategy problem. That's a psychology problem. And here's what makes this so hard to accept, especially for traders who are just starting out. You've put in the time, you've done the work, you feel like you deserve results. So when you keep losing, your brain immediately goes looking for a technical reason, a bad entry, a wrong indicator, a flawed system, because blaming the strategy feels safer than blaming yourself. But that's exactly what's keeping you stuck. Let me break this down clearly. There are 2 types of trading problems: technical problems and psychological problems. Technical problems are things like your strategy doesn't have an edge, your risk management is off, you're trading the wrong time frame for your personality. These are fixable with knowledge. You study, you adjust, you improve. Psychological problems are different. These are things like you know your rules, but you break them anyway. You feel fear even when your setup is perfect. You second-guess yourself after a loss. You overtrade when you're frustrated. You can't hold a winner because you're terrified it'll reverse. These are not fixable with more knowledge. You can't study your way out of them. You can't find a better indicator. You can't back-test your way to emotional control. And if you've been trading for 1 to 3 years or more and you're still not profitable, I guarantee the problem is psychological, not technical. You've already learned enough. The knowledge is there. What's missing is the execution, and execution is a mental game. Let me ask you something straight. When was the last time you broke one of your own rules? Not because you didn't know the rule. You knew it. You wrote it down. You told yourself you'd follow it this time, and then the moment came and you didn't. Why? Because knowing a rule and being able to follow it under pressure are 2 completely different skills. And that second skill, following your rules when your emotions are screaming at you, that's the one you haven't built yet. Here's a typical example of how it usually happens. You see a trade. Your strategy says, take it. But you just had 2 losses. Your brain is in protection mode. It's not thinking about probability or edge. It's thinking about survival, about not losing again, about the pain of being wrong one more time. So you hesitate. You add conditions. You tell yourself the setup isn't quite right. And you miss the trade. Or you take it, but you put your stop too tight. And you get stopped out on the noise before the move even starts. Or the opposite happens. You've been on a winning streak and you feel invincible. Your brain is flooded with confidence, so you oversize your position. You push into a trade that doesn't fully fit your criteria, and you give back everything you made. In both cases, the problem isn't the strategy. The problem is that your emotional state is overriding your rational mind, and your emotional state is being driven by your recent results. Which means you're not actually trading your strategy. You're trading your feelings. This is the trap most intermediate traders are stuck in, and most of them don't even realize it. Here's something deeper, something most trading content never touches. You don't just have a psychology problem, you have an identity problem. Think about who you were before you started trading. You were probably someone who was competent, someone who worked hard and got results, someone who studied and achieved good grades. Your whole identity, in school, at work, in life, was built on the idea that effort leads to reward, that if you're smart and disciplined, you win, and then you entered the market. And all of that stopped being true. In the market, you can do everything right and still lose. You can be smart and still get wrecked. You can be disciplined and still have a terrible month. The market doesn't care about your effort. It doesn't reward your intelligence. It doesn't notice your preparation. And your brain doesn't know how to handle that, because it violates everything you've been taught about how the world works. So every loss hits you harder than it should. Not because you lost money, but because it feels like a personal failure. Like the market is telling you you're not good enough. Like you're broken. Like you don't have what it takes. And that emotional weight, that identity threat, is what makes you break your rules. When you're trying to prove something to yourself, you stop trading your strategy and start trading your ego. You hold losing trades too long because cutting them means admitting you were wrong. You revenge trade because you need to make the pain stop. You overtrade because you need to feel like you're doing something. None of this has anything to do with technical analysis. All of it has everything to do with who you think you are. Let me put this in a way that makes it easy for you to understand. Imagine a surgeon, highly trained, years of education, perfect technical knowledge. Now imagine that surgeon gets nervous every time they pick up a scalpel because they're afraid of making a mistake. They second-guess their incisions. They hesitate at critical moments. They let their anxiety about outcomes affect their execution. Would you say that surgeon has a knowledge problem? No. Their knowledge is fine. Their problem is psychological, and no amount of additional medical training fixes it. That's you, right now. As a trader, you don't need another course, you don't need a new strategy, you don't need better indicators. You need to fix the thing that's making you unable to execute what you already know. The surgeon needs to develop the ability to perform under pressure, to detach from the outcome and focus purely on the process. You need the exact same thing. And here's the hard part. That skill is not built in a classroom. It's not built through watching videos. It's built through repetition, through pressure, through losing and choosing the right behavior anyway. It's built through doing the work on yourself, not on your charts. So let's get specific. What does fixing a psychology problem actually look like? I will be giving 5 proven steps to fix your psychology problem so you can start getting the results you deserve. First, you must stop switching strategies every time you have a losing streak. This is the #1 mistake intermediate traders make. You have 3 bad trades. You decide your strategy is broken. You find a new one. You backtest it. You feel excited again. You take a few trades, you hit a rough patch, and you're back to square one. This cycle is not a strategy problem. It's emotional avoidance. You're running from the discomfort of trusting a system through drawdown. Until you break this pattern, you will never be profitable. Pick a strategy. Define what a real sample size looks like, at least 50 to 100 trades, and commit to it. Second, start measuring yourself by execution, not results. After every trading session, the question should not be, did I make money? The real question should be, did I follow my rules? Did I execute with discipline? If you followed your rules and lost, that is a good trading day. If you broke your rules and won, that is a bad trading day. This sounds backwards, but it's the only mindset that leads to profitability. Results are random in the short term. Your actions is the only thing you can control. Third, reduce your position size until emotions are no longer a factor. If you are feeling fear, greed, or anxiety around your trades, you are trading too big. It's that simple. Drop your size to a point where a loss genuinely doesn't move you emotionally. This is not weakness. This is how you build proper habits and train your execution without emotional interference. Once you can execute cleanly at small size, you scale. Fourth, journal your psychology, not just your trades. Most traders journal entries and exits. That's useful. But what's more useful is journaling what you felt before, during, and after each trade. What were you thinking when you deviated from your plan? What emotion triggered it? What story did your brain tell you? This is how you identify patterns. This is how you catch your blind spots, because the problems that are costing you money are invisible until you put them on paper. Fifth, accept that losses are part of your edge, not a sign of failure. Even the best strategies in the world lose 40% of the time, maybe more. If you cannot accept individual losses as a normal and necessary part of a profitable system, you will never trade that system correctly. Every time you hesitate, exit early, or revenge trade after a loss, you are proving that you haven't truly accepted this. And until you do, your psychology will sabotage your strategy every single time. If you've been trading the market for 2 or 3 years now, and you're still not where you want to be, I know how that feels. The frustration, the self-doubt, the quiet voice in the back of your head that wonders if you're just not built for this. You are built for this. The fact that you're still here, still learning, still pushing, that means something. Most people quit long before year one. But you have to stop looking for the answer outside of yourself. The next strategy is not going to fix you. The next course is not going to unlock profitability. The next indicator is not the missing piece. You are the missing piece. The work that needs to happen is internal. It's uncomfortable. It's slower than learning a new entry technique. But it's the only work that actually changes your results at a fundamental level. The traders you admire, the ones who are consistently profitable, they are not smarter than you. They do not have a secret strategy. What they have is a different relationship with uncertainty, with loss, with their own ego. They have done the psychological work, and it changed everything. Here's what's waiting on the other side of this work, a version of you that sits down at the screen and executes without hesitation. A version that takes a loss, notes it in the journal, and moves to the next trade without a second thought. A version that doesn't need to win every trade to feel okay about themselves. A version that trusts the process completely, because the process has become who they are. That version of you doesn't need more strategy. They just need more of the right trades executed correctly over time, and the profits follow. Not because they got lucky, not because they found the Holy Grail, but because they finally stopped letting their emotions get in their own way. Always remember this: the next time you lose a trade, before you touch your strategy, before you tweak your system, before you go searching for a new setup, ask yourself one question: did I follow my rules? If you did, the problem is not your strategy, and you already know what the problem is. Stop blaming the market. Stop blaming the strategy. Do the real work. That's all for today. If you have learned something from this video, hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notified when next we upload a video like this.